I'm trying to be real honest. The game we're playing, I keep asking a question that you don't answer. How is this binding on anybody who is not a Bible-believing Christian?
What's good, my beautiful skeptics? Welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a clash you do not want to miss. Matt Dillahunty sits across from Cliff for a debate on whether biblical morality can actually hold up. And what starts as a calm philosophical question turns into Matt asking one simple thing that Cliff somehow cannot answer no matter how many times it gets put to him. The harder Cliff dodges, the deeper the hole gets, and the ending? Let's just say someone contradicts himself in the most spectacular way. Stick around all the way through, because the payoff at the end is the kind of moment you'll want to rewind twice. And while you're here, do me a favor and drop a comment letting me know exactly where in the world you're tuning in from. I genuinely love seeing how far this community reaches. All right, enough from me. Let's get into it.
I have a potentially quick question for Cliff, because you listed essentially 7 things, although there may have been 8. I had a difficult time with the numbering, where it's, hey, we're all made in the image of God, which obviously I don't agree with, so it can't be a foundation for both of us. I would hope that if we were going to talk about what's moral, we could start with some foundation that we agree on, like humanity, whether you think people are dignified because God says so, or I think they're dignified because of that this is what leads to a better world demonstrably. At least we both think that dignity and individual autonomy are justified. So whether we're made in God's image doesn't matter. The fall doesn't matter. Love your neighbor doesn't matter, because these are instructions from God, the same person that is okay with you owning your neighbors, as long as you buy them from the heathen that surround you. You had God delivers the Hebrews from slavery, but that's not in opposition to slavery. That's just God preferring the Hebrews, which is what he did. They're preferred. There were already different rules for Hebrew slaves than there were for the Gentiles. The passage in Galatians that there's neither slave nor free, that's about how God views people with regard to souls in an afterlife. It has nothing to do with whether God's okay with them being enslaved. There's no explicit word against slavery. That heaven will be populated by all. I don't see how any of this is an argument against slavery. All it does is set up a situation where the Bible seems to say, hey, slavery's okay under these prescriptions. And then there are other passages that people say, well, Paul didn't want his slave, or didn't want his friend to be a slave. How does that serve as a foundation for anyone other than a Bible-believing Christian?
Stuart? Cliff? That's toward you. All righty. It's very, very simple. Do all people have equal dignity? Not if there is no God and if evolution tells the whole story, because we have evolved to different levels of the evolutionary cycle. If there is no God, eugenics makes total sense. Get the weaker people out of the way, get handicapped people out of the way, get people who are just handicapped in whatever way, get them out of the way, because they are a drain on the limited natural resources that we have. So what the scriptures does is say baloney. All human beings, regardless of their IQ, regardless of their talents or lack thereof, have equal value, because they all are created by God to reflect the character of God in the way they live loving lives, good lives. Slavery is wrong because slavery is dehumanizing a person who has innate intrinsic value. Secondly, slavery is wrong because it's a classic example of sin, of basically saying, God, get out of the way. I'm going to define right and wrong. So, Matt, it's great if you want to say slavery is wrong. I happen to agree with you. The Bible obviously agrees with you. But remember, Matt, if there is no God, it's just a personal opinion. It's just a prejudice. It's just a bias that Matt Dillahunty has. Guess what? I'm convinced that slavery is wrong, not because I'm an educated white guy who thinks that slavery is wrong, and I've progressed to this level on the evolutionary ladder that makes me superior to others. No, the Bible says slavery is wrong because all human beings have equal value and dignity, and Christ died for all of us. And when it comes, Matt, to you saying, oh, God says all that Israel does is right. Come on, Matt, read the Hebrew prophets. You know very well, Matt, that God used first the Assyrians and then the Babylonians to judge the Israelites for their sacrificing babies, for their immorality. So please don't give me this line that Israel is God's pets. If that was true, then why did he sweep all the Israelites into captivity, first at the hands of the Assyrians and then at the hands of the Babylonians?
You have to understand what Matt does in the very first move here, because it quietly sets the trap for everything that follows. He looks at Cliff and basically says, you are handing me a foundation built on something I already reject. Matt put it like this: we're all made in the image of God, which obviously I don't agree with, so it can't be a foundation for both of us. And that is such a clean opening. In a real debate, your starting point has to be something both people accept. If your entire moral case rests on a book one person doesn't believe is true, you haven't proven anything. You've just restated your beliefs louder. Then Matt goes somewhere a lot of people are too nervous to go. He points out that the text never actually slams the door shut on owning other human beings. Matt said there's no explicit word against slavery. Read that again. Not a vague hint, no clear prohibition. The strongest possible move would have been one sentence saying this practice is forbidden, full stop. It isn't there. And when something that important is missing, you don't get to quietly fill the gap with your modern values and pretend the book did it for you. Now watch Cliffe's answer, because this is where it gets wild. Instead of addressing the gap, he pivots straight to fear. Cliffe said if there is no God, eugenics makes total sense. No, it absolutely does not. That's a massive leap. And honestly, it tells you he doesn't have a textual answer, so he reaches for the scariest hypothetical he can find. Then he doubles down. Cliffe said if there is no God, it's just a personal opinion, it's just a prejudice, it's just a bias that Matt Dillahunty has. And here's what blows my mind about that. He's accidentally admitting that I's morality is also just an opinion. It's the opinion of whoever he believes wrote the book.
Well, first of all, this is not remotely an answer to the question that I asked. The question I asked is, given all the foundations that you provide, how does that apply to someone who is not a Christian, who does not believe that the Bible is true? So basically, your entire case for biblical slavery being moral is a particular interpretation on your part of the Bible. Now, we may or may not agree on the interpretation, but all I was asking was, if there's someone who does not agree with the Bible, either your version or somebody else's version, how is that in any way a demonstration that it's wrong?
You can disagree with whatever you want to. I could disagree with whatever I want to. The question is, if you're going to put yourself in a position of judging the Bible and the Bible's morality, then you better have a pretty good explanation of what's the basis of the morality that you're using to judge the Bible's morality.
No, see,
and I have not heard that from you.
So first of all, that's still not an answer to my question. And second of all, nobody has to have a better explanation than God said so in order to object to the things that you say God said, because I have no evidence that God said anything.
All right, fine, Matt. It's real simple. You know, I often hear people say, God says it, I believe it, that settles it. You know, there's an alternative, Matt, to that line of thinking.
Yes, there's God says it, that settles it. I said it,
I believe it, that settles it.
Oh, that's not the alternative.
My point is, that's the heart of sin. The heart of sin is me playing God, me saying, God, my opinion is more correct, more moral, more right than your opinion.
I get that.
You can go that path. I go on that path at times myself. But let's be real honest, the game that we're playing.
I'm trying to be real honest, the game we're playing. I keep asking a question that you don't answer. How is this binding on anybody who is not a Bible-believing Christian?
Well, obviously, I would think you'd be able to answer that question yourself. It's not.
I would like for you to answer it. Why is it I have to ask 3 times, Cliff?
If you're an atheist, you're not going to accept that the Bible speaks the truth, and so you're going to live your own life.
Great.
And God has given you the gift of freedom.
Great.
But if there is a God, if you're wrong that there is no God, if indeed in reality there is a God who ultimately will judge us, then you're in a real jam, Matt.
I'm not with regard to slavery.
And have to answer him. But if there is no God, Matt, when I die, I become fertilizer. And when you die, you become fertilizer. And that's it. So that's obviously the way it is, Matt.
And so
if there is no God, we all die and we're fertilizer. So you're not going to have to answer to God. Neither am I. But if there is a God, then you're going to have to answer to God for the decisions you made and the way you treated people. So am I.
This is the part everybody should pay attention to, because it's the cleanest example of a debate dodge you will ever see. Matt asks one simple thing over and over. If your morality only works for people who already accept the book, how is it binding on anyone else? And Cliffe just will not touch it. Matt told him flat out, this is not remotely an answer to the question that I asked. And he's right. Cliffe kept answering a question nobody was asking. Then Matt drops a line that should honestly be printed on a poster. He said nobody has to have a better explanation than God said so in order to object. This is the whole game right here. Cliffe's entire strategy is to demand that the atheist produce some perfect, airtight foundation before he's even allowed to criticize anything. But that's completely backwards. You don't need a finished theory of physics to notice a bridge falling down. You can reject a claim for one reason alone. There's no good evidence to accept it. And then comes my favorite exchange in the whole thing. Cliffe pulls out the classic line. He said, God says it, I believe it, that settles it. And without missing a single beat, Matt fires back. He said, I said it, I believe it, that settles it. Do you see what just happened there? Matt proved in about 5 seconds that this so-called divine foundation is empty. If simply declaring something true is what settles it, then anybody can do that about anything. The authority Cliffe thinks makes him special is the exact same authority every single person already has. He just dressed his own opinion up and called it sacred. That's the part that gets me every time.
And while I understand that, the subject of this debate is biblical slavery moral? Now, we're going to disagree on foundations of morality, but if your argument is what the Bible says is good and correct because it comes from God, and Matt's just wrong that it's not slavery.
I never said that once, so you put those words in my mouth.
Hang on.
Never once did I say the Bible speaks the truth because it comes from the mouth of God.
I know you did
not.
Great
job attacking a straw man, Matt, but I never once said that.
Cliffe, can you calm down?
Can you calm down and start being accurate with what I say?
I did not say, Cliffe, I did not say that you said that. I'm sorry that you're not following this. If you make the case that what the Bible...
If you make the case, you're referring to me.
Are you going to interrupt me every time?
No, go ahead.
If you make the case, as you did, that what the Bible sanctions is not slavery in the view that we hold, are you in agreement with me that was your case, that what we call slavery, you don't think is slavery?
I never made that case once. You totally misunderstood. Totally.
Okay, fine.
I started off by saying slavery is evil. And then I
continued
continued to say, and
Cliffe,
the Bible never condones slavery.
Okay, how dare you, sir? You just said the Bible never condones slavery.
Right.
It does, in fact, support slavery in the notion that slavery is permissible under certain guidelines, correct?
Here's where the whole thing comes crashing down, and I want you to really sit with it. Matt drags the conversation back to what they were actually supposed to be debating. He said the subject of this debate is biblical slavery moral? Simple, stay on topic. But instead of staying there, Cliffe keeps drifting toward this idea that without his God, your life just ends and that's it. He said, when I die, I become fertilizer, and when you die, you become fertilizer. And I have to be honest with you, that is not an argument. That's an emotional pressure tactic. Whether or not anything happens after we die has nothing to do with whether owning another human being is right or wrong. He's trying to make you scared instead of trying to make you think, and you should never let someone swap those two things on you. And here's something a lot of people don't realize. This exact problem is ancient. Over 2,000 years ago, Plato wrote down a question we now call the Euthyphro dilemma. It goes like this. Is something good because a god commands it, or does a god command it because it was already good? If it's good only because it's commanded, then good is just whatever the one in charge says, and it could flip tomorrow. That's the very trap Cliffe walked straight into, and he never found his way back out. But the real knockout is the ending. Cliffe says with total confidence that the Bible never condones slavery, and Matt just catches him. Because moments before, Cliffe's entire defense was that the practice was permitted under rules and guidelines. So Matt lays it out plain. He said it does in fact support slavery in the notion that slavery is permissible under certain guidelines. And Cliffe agrees with him. He says correct. Think about that for 1 second. You cannot say a book never allows something, and then immediately admit it allows that thing under conditions. Those two statements cannot both be true. That is not Matt twisting his words. That's Cliffe contradicting himself in real time, and the only reason it happened is because the text doesn't say what he so badly wishes it said. When your foundation forces you to argue against your own sentences, it was never solid to begin with. So what do you guys think of this? Leave your thoughts down in the comments, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.